Wang Lin was still inside the man's body, about to leave, when suddenly his heart stirred. Maintaining his vortex state, he departed along with him. Perhaps because a divine sense had just swept past, the three of them encountered no further probing as they advanced. Unimpeded, they drew closer to the Crimson Peak. We need to move faster. Once we finish the delivery for Ancestor Yinluan, we still have to head to the other main peaks. There's no time to waste. Song Ying, we'll wait for you up ahead. Catch up after you're done. The voice of the woman who had spoken earlier sounded again. Beside her, another woman nodded in agreement. The three split apart. The one named Song Ying flew directly toward Crimson Peak, while the other woman, along with the man in whom Wang Lin was hiding, veered off, circling around the peak toward the distance. Without hesitation, Wang Lin unraveled into threads of smoke from the man's body. In an instant, he wound himself around Song Ying's robes, following her as she flew straight toward Crimson Peak. This Song Ying looked young, her features delicate and beautiful, her body carrying the faint fragrance of a maiden. She transformed into a streak of rainbow light and swiftly reached the mountain. Outside the peak, she halted midair. Before her shimmered a blurred light curtain, serving as a barrier. Raising her jade-like hand, a crimson jade slip appeared. As she pressed it toward the light curtain, threads of smoke from Wang Lin split off, darting toward the jade slip. While she moved forward, Wang Lin exerted his full focus, rapidly analyzing the restrictions within. A faint cracking sound came from inside the jade slip. In the next moment, as it touched the barrier, Wang Lin instantly withdrew his divine sense. The light curtain rippled like water, then slowly dissolved. The young woman stowed away the jade slip and stepped forward, entering the barrier. At the very instant her figure passed through, the smoke upon her robes twisted violently. Simulating the form of a jade slip through his mastery of restriction origins, Wang Lin slipped silently into the barrier with her. As soon as he entered, excitement stirred within his heart. The space beyond brimmed with the power of fire origin. Each breath here could strengthen his own essence. But equally, within this place was a female cultivator at the early void tribulation stage, someone Wang Lin dared not underestimate. He did not immediately leave the woman's robes, instead choosing to remain hidden. The heat seemed ill-suited to her constitution. Sweat broke out across her body as soon as she entered. Without pause, she flew deeper into Crimson Peak, delivering a type of immortal fruit called the soul-dissolving fruit to the various abodes scattered across the mountain. Under Wang Lin's careful observation, there were 19 abodes within the peak. Aside from the one at the summit, which she bypassed, she delivered fruits to all the rest. Each abode radiated vitality, each inhabited by a disciple of the Great Soul Sect. Before long, she reached the final abode. Standing there, her body was drenched with sweat from the waves of heat. "Senior sister, I've brought the soul-dissolving fruits." Her voice, tinged with weakness, rang out respectfully outside the sealed stone door. "Leave them there." A gentle voice came from within. The sound made Wang Lin's heart jolt the moment it entered his ears. "It's her." Wang Lin paused in thought. At the instant Song Ying set down 9 pale blue fruits that radiated a chilling aura. The smoke left her robes and curled itself around the leaf of one of the fruits. Song Ying clasped her fists respectfully, turned, and departed. The light curtain shimmered, closed once more. The stone door opened a narrow crack, and a suction force swept the fruits inside. The door closed tightly behind them. Within the abode, soft glimmers of light drifted about. The suction deposited the fruits onto a stone table. Not far away, a woman in pink robes sat cross-legged. Her beauty was striking, her bearing extraordinary, radiating elegance and unmatched grace. Her brows were slightly furrowed, her expression subdued. She did not cultivate but sat in silence, lost in thought. Hidden upon the leaf of a fruit, Wang Lin studied her, his mind contemplative as well. After a long while, the woman sighed softly, closing her eyes as though preparing to meditate. But at that very moment, a calm voice resonated within her mind. Fan Shanlu. Her eyes flew open. Beneath her robes, her right hand trembled slightly before she abruptly raised it, sweeping forward. Mist materialized instantly, enveloping the entire abode in a dense shroud. "Wang Lin, where are you?" Fan Shanlu drew a deep breath, Wang Lin did not immediately reveal himself. Instead, he glanced at the hazy mist released by Fan Shanlu, which was quite mysterious in nature. The mist's function was to seal all traces of aura, making it undetectable from the outside. This action was an instinctive behavior from Fan Shanlu. Wang Lin, who was accustomed to observing the details, thought for a moment before releasing smoke strands from the immortal fruit leaf. These strands gathered in front of Fan Shanlu, forming his body. Long time no see. Wang Lin smiled as he looked at Fan Shanlu, his peripheral vision casually sweeping over the hazy mist. Upon seeing Wang Lin, Fan Shanlu stood in a daze for a long while before smiling as well. It has indeed been a long time. I didn't expect you to come here. This mist is released by the core disciples of the Great Soul Sect during their seclusion. Once the mist appears, the sect's master will not easily send out their divine sense for a short period. Here we are safe. Fan Shanlu's smile was full of joy. Meeting Wang Lin here was a complete surprise to her. Yet, her gratitude towards him had not faded with time. The scenes from the abode realm had already become a part of her life. Without Wang Lin, she could never have returned to her homeland. She admired him deeply. Wang Lin casually sat cross-legged nearby. After hearing Fan Shanlu's explanation and observing her expression, he felt somewhat reassured, though his caution remained. If Fan Shanlu had any other intentions, he would act without hesitation. You are still as cautious as ever. But that's good. In the immortal firmament continent, caution is necessary to survive. Fan Shanlu said with a smile, looking at Wang Lin. 3 years ago, I met Yun Yifeng from the Unity Sect and mentioned you. Logically speaking, you should have entered the immortal firmament continent long ago, but I've heard nothing of you. I thought something had happened to you, or that you were far away from here. I never expected to meet you today. Fan Shanlu blinked and chuckled lightly. Some unexpected things happened along the way, which is why I arrived late. But I'm glad to see you. Wang Lin smiled faintly. It was indeed rare to meet an old acquaintance in this strange, immortal firmament continent, and it made him feel a sense of familiarity. Fan Shanlu felt the same. After seeing Wang Lin, she felt an unexpected warmth. After all, she had spent most of her life in the abode realm, and apart from the nominal relationship with the Great Soul Sect, she had grown quite distant from them. Go ahead, tell me why you came to the Great Soul Sect, and why you came to my abode. If you need help, I will do my best, Fan Shanlu said with a sincere smile. The earlier heaviness in her expression had vanished, replaced by genuine joy. Wang Lin could feel the sincerity in Fan Shanlu's joy, and his heart warmed a little. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke softly. I need the main Earthfire vein here to cultivate a divine ability. It might have some impact on the main vein. Fan Shanlu's eyes flashed with thought. After a long pause, she nodded. No problem. I can take you to the Earthfire seclusion chamber. It's the place closest to the Earthfire vein. As for the sect master, she is in long-term seclusion and only intermittently releases her divine sense. For a short while, she won't check on the disciples in seclusion to avoid disturbances. The main concern is my sister. She is on Flame Vein Mountain, but she's currently favored by the sect master, so she shouldn't come out easily. How about this? I'll accompany you to the Earthfire room and tell others I'm in seclusion. However, we can't stay for too long, or it might attract unwanted attention. Fan Shanlu's words were decisive, and she quickly formed a plan. If we do this, it might put you at a disadvantage. Wang Lin pondered, speaking slowly. Fan Shanlu's expression softened at his words, and she shook her head with a gentle smile. It's fine. The sect master is protective of me, and I know my limits. Wang Lin's expression grew serious. He stood up, cupping his fists toward Fan Shanlu, and said solemnly, Thank you. No need to thank me. I should be the one thanking you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have returned to the immortal firmament continent. Fan Shanlu smiled and stood up. Let's not waste any time. We should go now. I'll have to ask you to hide within my clothes. Fan Shanlu said, her cheeks slightly flushed. Wang Lin nodded. With a swift motion, his body turned into smoke strands and merged into the sleeve of Fan Shanlu's garment, swirling around her skin. This way, if she made any sudden movements, Wang Lin would be able to detect it immediately. His caution would not change, regardless of the person, the place, or the conversation. Fan Shanlu adjusted her clothing, and, Once her expression returned to normal, raised her jade hand and waved forward. Immediately, the hazy mist dispersed. With a flash of her body, she stepped out of the abode. She did not pause for a moment, walking at a steady pace toward a massive abode located beneath a crimson mountain peak. This was the place closest to the Earthfire main vein, a location that her sect master had specifically created for disciples to refine their cultivation in seclusion. They didn't believe that anyone could enter here under the eyes of their master. Moreover, Fan Shanlu was a core disciple at Flame Vein Peak, with a high status. Her older sister was even more favored by their master, seemingly destined to inherit the mantle. As such, no one in their sect would make things difficult for Fan Shanlu. She was allowed to enter the abode realm smoothly, reaching the deepest part of the cave, where she stood before a closed stone chamber. The door to this chamber was crimson, radiating intense heat. Any ordinary cultivator who came close would feel their blood burning as though on fire, not to mention meditating inside. To be precise, this stone chamber was carved out from the main Earthfire vein. Meditating inside was as though one were meditating within the very body of the Earthfire vein itself. This place wasn't limited to cultivating the fire origin. Under the will of the Earthfire vein, all virtual and real origins, except for the water origin, could be cultivated here. The main purpose of this was to leverage the oppressive force of the fire will, which generated a pressure. This pressure could produce a time-altering effect. Spending a single day here under this pressure was often equivalent to several days outside. This stone chamber was the most precious location on Flame Vein Peak and was only accessible to core disciples. Before arriving, Fan Shanlu had sent a sound transmission to Wang Lin. Now, standing outside the chamber, Fan Shanlu raised her right hand and waved it forward. The crimson door slowly opened, revealing a gap just wide enough for someone to pass through. The moment the gap appeared, a low roar echoed wildly from within. Immediately after, a sea of flames erupted from the gap, forming into a fire dragon that surged toward Fan Shanlu. Her eyes flashed. At the instant the fire dragon approached, she whispered a strange incantation. Chop! Upon hearing this sound, the fire dragon trembled and shattered in front of Fan Shanlu, scattering into sparks that flew in all directions. Without hesitation, she stepped toward the gap in the stone door and entered the chamber. As she did, the door slowly closed behind her. At the moment the fire dragon appeared in the stone chamber, at the highest point of Flame Vein Peak, a young woman in a white Taoist robe, looking about 30, suddenly opened her eyes as she sat cross-legged. This woman's appearance was strikingly beautiful, enough to make anyone's heart race upon seeing her. Her brows were like crescent moons, and her eyes resembled phoenix feathers. On her forehead were several shiny 5-star chips, making her even more captivating. She casually glanced forward, her divine sense swept out, spreading around the stone chamber below the mountain, but it didn't penetrate inside. After scanning, it quickly withdrew. This is the first time Luer has closed herself off since returning. It's good for her. She can forget about her worries. This woman was Fan Shanlu's master. Opposite her, there was another woman who looked very much like Fan Shanlu, but had a noticeably colder expression. Wang Lin was familiar with her. She was Fan Shanming. Her eyelashes trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. After a moment of silence, she sighed inwardly and closed her eyes once more to meditate. Inside the stone chamber beneath the mountain, as soon as Fan Shanlu entered, she immediately felt a hot wave rush toward her. Sweat began to bead on her forehead. The heat was bearable, but what was more overwhelming was the presence of an immense will coming from all directions. This will was incredibly powerful and formed into a pressure that enveloped her entire body. Anyone who stepped inside would immediately be covered by this pressure and must meditate to familiarize themselves with it. I can't go too deep into this chamber. It's been a long time since I've been here. I'll wait for you here, Fan Shanlu spoke, and a wisp of smoke flew from her sleeve, transforming into Wang Lin's figure, standing beside her. As soon as Wang Lin appeared, the surrounding heat waves surged toward him. But just as they neared, Wang Lin took a deep breath, sucking in the heat waves, which immediately entered his body. His expression remained calm as the heat turned into strands of fire origin, nourishing his entire body. Indeed, this is the main vein. Just this heat alone is equivalent to more than 10 branch veins. Wang Lin's gaze flickered. This was the place he had been looking for. Looking around the stone chamber, it wasn't square in shape, and calling it a stone chamber didn't quite do it justice. It was an elongated space with walls on all sides that were crimson, becoming more intense the deeper one went. 1 yard represents a level of intensity. This place is 37 yards long. You can choose the location to absorb according to your needs. Fan Shanlu, almost drenched in sweat, sat cross-legged near the door and spoke softly. You can leave in 3 days. I'll probably stay longer. Even if something happens, it won't affect you too much. Wang Lin cupped his hands in a salute to in a flash. He was over 20 zhang away. The moment he landed, the intense flame energy surged towards him, but as soon as it enveloped Wang Lin, it was instantly absorbed into his body. With another step, Wang Lin reached the 37th zhang mark, the deepest part of the cave. Sitting cross-legged, Wang Lin immediately formed a hand seal, wasting no time, and pressed his hands onto the ground on either side of him. At this moment, he was within the main Earthfire vein, absorbing its will and the power of fire origin. Moreover, he was in the presence of many formidable figures from the Great Soul Sect, which made this endeavor comparable to pulling teeth from the mouth of a tiger. Fan Shanlu watched as Wang Lin's figure receded, her gaze distorted by the intense heat radiating from the crimson walls, gradually fading out of sight. After a long while, she sighed softly and closed her eyes to meditate. Meanwhile, Wang Lin's eyes gleamed as waves of fire origin power surged towards his hands, which were pressed firmly to the ground. The power of fire rushed into his body, flooding him with energy. Gradually, Wang Lin's body became engulfed in flames. 3 days later, his aura completely disappeared, merging with the Earthfire vein, becoming nearly undetectable. At this point, his divine sense slowly expanded, traveling through his body, penetrating the stone chamber, and heading deep into the Earthfire vein. The fire origin was fully absorbed by Wang Lin's body, reaching its saturation point. No more fire origin could form his true body. What he needed to do now was consume the will of the Earthfire vein. Only by devouring that will and becoming the master of the Earthfire on Heavenly Ox continent could Wang Lin's true body fully take form. This time, I will succeed. Wang Lin's divine sense transformed into his true body within the Earthfire vein. His head still resembled that of the vermilion bird. Though it looked somewhat strange, the power of fire origin and the will of fire emanating from his body were extraordinary. In Wang Lin's perception, the Earthfire vein was like an endless, massive fire dragon coiled deep beneath the earth. The dragon exuded an ancient, decaying aura, seeming to have existed for countless years, formed from the Earthfire vein itself. This dragon had no intellect, only a powerful will, a will that spread throughout its entire body, pressing toward Wang Lin like the might of heaven. Wang Lin's true body's eyes flickered, and with a cold smile, he did not retreat. Instead, as the will approached, he released his flames and began rapidly devouring it. Devour this will. Nourish his own will. Forge his true fire will. As the devouring continued, the Earthfire vein trembled violently. Immediately after, an even more immense and destructive fire will rush toward Wang Lin, enveloping him entirely, attempting to crush him. But this was not Wang Lin's real body. It was his true body. The arrival of this will did not cause discomfort. On the contrary, under the intense devouring, the head of his true body showed signs of transformation, no longer resembling the vermilion bird, but instead revealing human skin. This change caused Wang Lin's spirit to stir. Follow this will, and find the head of the Earthfire vein's dragon soul. I must absorb it there to complete my true body. Wang Lin knew time was pressing and hesitated no more. He followed the powerful Earthfire vein deeper into its core. He had to find the head of the Earthfire vein's dragon soul before the experts from the Great Soul Sect discovered anything abnormal. Otherwise, all would be in vain. 3 more days passed, and Fan Shanlu opened her eyes from her cross-legged meditation. She no longer sensed Wang Lin's presence. After a brief silence, she stood up and walked out of the stone chamber. After Fan Shanlu left, no one entered the stone chamber, and no one noticed Wang Lin's presence. However, this was only temporary. At this moment, Wang Lin's true body was deep within the endless depths of the Earthfire vein, simultaneously devouring the incoming will and speeding towards its core, racing against time. 3 more days passed. On the 3rd day, as dusk fell, Wang Lin had already ventured deep into the Earthfire vein. Gradually, he saw the massive Earthfire vein dragon soul and its head. It was the head of a flame dragon, several thousand zhang in size, appearing ancient, as though even its breath was decaying. The moment Wang Lin saw the dragon head, his true body surged forward, charging into the dragon soul's head in an instant. As his true body entered, the Earthfire vein dragon soul suddenly trembled, releasing a world-shattering roar. This roar spread from the earth to the surface, triggering violent tremors throughout the Earthfire vein. In response, Flame Vein Mountain and the Great Soul Sect shook fiercely, stones falling, and waves of fiery energy roared from the mountain, spreading out rapidly. The sudden change immediately caused the young woman meditating at the peak of this such boldness. The young woman swayed, and in an instant, she rushed out of the cave, using a teleportation technique to appear beneath the mountain peak. With a flick of her sleeve, she slammed open the crimson stone door of the chamber. As the door was blasted open, a powerful force of flames immediately enveloped Wang Lin's body, which was 37 zhang away inside. The flames seemed to have a pulling force, drawing him along the Earthfire main vein, pulling him downward. Trying to escape? The young woman's face twisted with murderous intent. The flames roared as they carried Wang Lin's body forward. However, he didn't feel any heat. This was because his primordial origin avatar had already traveled ahead, absorbing vast amounts of the will of fire. Without this, his body, once separated from the fire primordial true body, would not be able to withstand such a powerful force of flames. This was also why his body only began merging with the earth when the young woman appeared. With a fierce glint in her eyes, the young woman clearly sensed the tremor in the Earthfire main vein, as though someone deep inside was desperately absorbing it. This shift ignited a murderous urge in her heart. Dare to play tricks before me? You seek death. The young woman took a step forward, and with a rumble from the earth beneath her, she melded into the ground, chasing after Wang Lin's body. The two of them sped forward, one ahead and the other following closely. With each tremor of the Earthfire main vein, it seemed as though the Flame Vein Mountain was on the brink of collapse. All the disciples within rushed out of their seclusion chambers, flying into the air with solemn expressions, gazing at the shaking crimson mountain peak. Fan Shanlu was among them. She knew this was related to Wang Lin and couldn't help but smile bitterly. She thought to herself, no matter where Wang Lin went, it seemed like he always stirred up earth-shaking changes. Fan Shanming was also among the crowd. Her eyes flickered as she looked at the crimson mountain peak, before suddenly turning to her younger sister, Fan Shanlu. Sis, you brought outsiders into the stone chamber, didn't you? Fan Shanlu immediately heard her sister's voice echo in her mind. Although you're my sister, don't speak carelessly. In the abode realm, you've used me all these years, and now you want to slander me as well. Do you still have any conscience? Fan Shanlu spun around, glaring coldly at her sister. She could never forget how, in the abode realm, her sister had manipulated her to control Wang Lin, even using her as part of the scheme. That dangerous moment had both chilled her heart and woken her up. Fan Shanming fell silent, no longer speaking. As the Flame Vein Mountain trembled, several powerful auras erupted from within the Great Soul Sect, and terrifying divine senses spread out, enveloping the entire Flame Vein Mountain. This mountain was only one of the main peaks of the Great Soul Sect, and the sect boasted 49 such peaks. Not every peak had a cultivator at the early Void Tribulation stage, but it was clear that the Great Soul Sect was vast and powerful. Leaving the Great Soul Sect aside, deep within the Earthfire main vein, Wang Lin's body was shrouded by flames, moving forward at an incredible speed. Behind him, the young woman, enveloped in murderous intent, relentlessly pursued him. However, within the Earthfire main vein, the will of fire was intertwined with Wang Lin's primordial origin avatar. This allowed him to move through the area with ease, growing faster and faster, while the young woman struggled to exert her full power, slightly hindered. For a moment, the distance between them didn't close, as they ventured deeper into the Earthfire main vein. At the very deepest part of the Earthfire main vein, within the massive head of the Earthfire main dragon soul, Wang Lin's primordial origin avatar had already entered, sitting cross-legged inside the dragon's head. With hands forming seals, he relentlessly absorbed and devoured the dragon soul's will. Time was running out, and danger loomed. Wang Lin had no time to think about anything else. His sole focus was on devouring the will of fire. As he consumed it, the main dragon soul let out a painful roar. Inside the dragon's head, Wang Lin's primordial origin avatar's chin had already been completely transformed into skin, losing the form of the vermilion bird. This change spread slowly, soon reaching his mouth, revealing Wang Lin's lips. Faster, devour more. Wang Lin's primordial origin avatar's eyes flashed with urgency, his heart roaring. The Earthfire main dragon soul's furious roar filled the air as its body twisted, and the pain of being devoured made it feel the looming threat of death. As the dragon's body writhed, shockwaves radiated out, shaking the earth and causing the great soul sect to feel the tremors. The Flame Vein Mountain, in particular, quivered and rumbled, and at its peak, the mountain suddenly collapsed into countless shards that scattered in all directions. A burst of flames erupted into the sky, as if trying to burn the heavens themselves. This sudden event caught the great soul sect's attention. Disciples outside the mountain quickly retreated, avoiding the explosion. What happened? Could someone have entered the Earthfire main vein? The voices of shock echoed, and more the changes in the earth were felt even more strongly by the young woman deep underground. Her expression darkened, and her stunningly beautiful face appeared as if covered in frost. She stared intently at Wang Lin's fleeing form. Suddenly, her right hand rose, and with a flick of her fingers, an ancient bronze mirror materialized in her grasp. Ancient mirror Tao pattern, transform the shadow of the world and pursue this person. With a swift motion of her right hand, the mirror emitted a blinding light. Inside, a deafening roar echoed, and as black mist poured out, it coiled into a giant ghostly face. With a roar, the ghost face surged forward at an incredible speed, rapidly closing the distance to Wang Lin's physical form. In the blink of an eye, it was less than 30 yards behind him, continuing to advance with each passing moment. Wang Lin's consciousness split into two parts, one in his primordial true body, devouring the will of the fire dragon, while the other stayed in his physical body, controlling his movements. The moment the ghostly face appeared just behind him, Wang Lin spun around sharply, his eyes flashing with cold light. The ghost face divine ability of the Great Soul Sect. Wang Lin's eyelid twitched, and without hesitation, he took a step forward. As his foot touched the ground, ripples spread in front of him, and in the next instant, his body vanished without a trace. Just as he disappeared, the roaring ghost face crashed into the spot where he had been. A massive explosion reverberated through the depths of the earth. Moments later, the young woman transformed into a streak of rainbow light, coming to a halt. Her brow furrowed as she observed the sudden change in the surroundings. As she pondered, she suddenly looked up, sensing Wang Lin's reappearance deeper ahead. To be able to teleport within the main Earthfire vein, this person must not be underestimated. The young woman had attempted to teleport in this fiery vein before, but the Earthfire will had prevented her from doing so. Wang Lin, however, had managed to do so. Although surprised, she hadn't given it much thought. He hasn't teleported before, clearly because even for him, each teleportation here consumes a massive amount of immortal energy. Let's see how many more times he can teleport. The young woman sneered and waved her jade hand, summoning the ghost face once again. It howled and wrapped around her body as it sped forward in pursuit. Wang Lin's physical form continued to race forward. Every time the ghost face and the young woman closed in, he would teleport, increasing the distance. Yet his destination was not deeper into the Earthfire vein, where his primordial true body lay, but subtly adjusted to a different path. Though nearly identical, it was crucially different. In this relatively safe environment, Wang Lin's primordial true body absorbed and devoured energy unhindered. With no interruptions, its speed of absorption increased. As it continued to absorb, Wang Lin's primordial true body slowly revealed its nose. The Earthfire main vein's dragon soul thrashed violently, its massive body twisting in agony, yet it could not stop the absorption. This was no longer a matter of cultivation. It was a battle of fire against fire, a collision of wills. The Earthfire main vein was clearly no match for Wang Lin's devouring force. Soon, the eyes of Wang Lin's primordial true body suddenly shifted from the vermilion bird's eyes to two real human eyes. The gaze was calm, but within that calm, two flames burned fiercely. The Earthfire main vein's dragon soul, in every desperate struggle, caused the ground to tremble, reverberating with deafening explosions. Wang Lin's primordial true body formed seals with its hands. With a low growl, the forehead of the true body suddenly shifted, no longer resembling the vermilion bird but real skin. At the moment when the nose, eyes, and forehead transformed, an overwhelming will erupted from Wang Lin's body, like a force of nature, rapidly devouring the dragon soul's power and causing it to grow stronger. From afar, Wang Lin's true body now had completely changed below the forehead, with only the hair above still resembling the vermilion bird. In fact, the long feathers that formed the hair were exactly like the vermilion bird's. Only the hair remains. My primordial true body is nearly fully formed. Wang Lin's true body's gaze flickered as it continued to devour. Just then, the violent tremors from the dragon soul's movements caused a ripple in the air, and the young woman, who had been chasing his physical form, paused. Her image flickered as she emerged from the ghost face, her expression changing as she ground her teeth. Miscalculated. This person has a clone deeper inside. He's using this true body to divert my attention, and I unknowingly ignored his clone in pursuit. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the Earthfire main vein's vibrations to be so intense. Damn it. Realizing her mistake, her face darkened with fury. With a flicker, she abandoned the pursuit of Wang Lin's physical form and headed straight for the depths of the Earthfire main vein. Speeding toward Wang Lin's primordial true body, the young woman ceased her pursuit. In the instant she changed direction, Wang Lin's true body immediately noticed. He smiled faintly, his expression calm. The reason he left his true body in that stone chamber was not only because the main Earthfire vein could not yet bear the intense heat before his primordial origin avatar had consumed too much, but also to divert the attention of the pursuers. Now, he had successfully delayed for a moment. It was unknown how many would read the title of this chapter and mistake it for a loss of innocence. Naturally, they would continue their pursuit, but in doing so, some miscalculations were inevitable. After all, perfection is rare in this world. Even Wang Lin, faced with the same situation, would likely struggle to react instantly and realize this was a stalling tactic. For the young woman to notice so quickly was remarkable. Her choice to abandon the chase and head deep underground was perceived by Wang Lin, who smirked coldly. This Earthfire main vein was now filled with two distinct wills, one from the Earthfire dragon soul, the other from his own primordial avatar. Now it's my turn to strike. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He would not allow anyone to disturb his primordial avatar's devouring. This devouring was of immense significance to him, as it marked a change in his origin. Especially for someone like him, who had come from the abode realm to the immortal firmament continent. This change would greatly enhance his power. His body flickered, ripples swirling beneath his feet, and in an instant, he vanished without a trace. The young woman sped forward, her body surrounded by the ghost face, moving with great speed. As she advanced, a sudden stir in her heart made her instinctively dash to the side. In that moment, a blood-red light screamed past her body, piercing the ghost face and crashing into the Earthfire main vein in front of her with a thunderous boom. It was a blood sword. The sword radiated a terrifying aura of malice, and within it, the faintest trace of Tao ancient lineage's essence lingered. At the sight of the blood sword, the young woman's expression suddenly changed. The blood fiend sword from the 7 swords of Tao ancient. You're not a cultivator. The young woman spun sharply, only to see the sword flash again, reappearing before her. Waves of ripples spread as Wang Lin's figure emerged. Blood fiend sword. Wang Lin's eyes flickered. He had inherited Yi Mo's legacy, But without the left eye, his memory was incomplete. He knew the sword had been bestowed upon Yi Mo by Dao Gu Imperial Venerable, but he did not know its full name. After revealing himself, Wang Lin spoke no words. Instead, he raised his right hand and pointed upward. Instantly, multicolored lights erupted from the Earthfire main vein, swirling towards him and coalescing into a 7-colored long spear. The spear howled as it shot towards the young woman. She sneered and raised her right hand, casually waving it. Immediately, the ghost face emitted a terrifying roar, lunging at the spear to devour it. In a flash, the two collided. The 7-colored spear was utterly powerless, consumed in an instant by the massive ghost face, which then surged toward Wang Lin. The young woman's eyes glinted with murderous intent as she stepped forward, the ghost face charging directly at Wang Lin. "You've come to me, so you'll stay?" A cold voice echoed through the Earthfire main vein, reaching Wang Lin's ears. Wang Lin stepped back. With a flick of his sleeve, the golden seal of Xian Luo shot forward, aiming to suppress the ghost face. The golden seal emitted a powerful aura, containing a trace of Xian Luo's strength. As it neared the ghost face, a loud crash rang out. The ghost face let out a shrill scream before vanishing into smoke before Wang Lin's eyes. Golden light flooded the area as the golden seal surged toward the young woman. At the sight of it, her pupils contracted in shock, and her body froze. At the same time, Wang Lin's eyes flickered, and he swiftly retreated. As he vanished into the Earthfire main vein, the golden light dimmed. The golden seal halted, and together with the blood sword, disappeared without a trace. "Do not pursue. I bear no ill will toward the Great Soul Sect. I simply need to use the Earthfire main vein for a technique." Wang Lin's voice echoed around, reaching the young woman's mind. She stood there, silent, as she pondered. In that brief moment, she had sensed the terrifying aura of a grand heavenly venerable from the golden seal. This power made her think of many things. After a long pause, the cold light in her eyes flickered again. Even if the grand heavenly venerable's artifact is granted, so what? This person possesses the blood fiend sword, clearly from the Tao ancient. The grand heavenly venerable of the ancient kingdom, though equally powerful, could not interfere with my immortal clan. Even if my judgment was mistaken and this person had the backing of the grand heavenly venerable of the immortal clan, the fact that he sought to meddle with the Earthfire vein of my great soul sect made it only natural for me to pursue him. I stand on the side of righteousness in this matter, and I do not seek to kill him, but only to stop him. Even the grand heavenly venerable cannot act so unreasonably. The young woman muttered, suddenly raising her head and charging once more toward the depths of the Earthfire vein. Her temperament was extremely intense, and her cultivation level was largely a result of her character. She would never give up easily. Though shaken by the golden seal, she soon made up her mind. This, far surpassing Du Qing. At another position within the Earthfire vein, Wang Lin, guided by the will of his own primordial true body here, sensed the woman's movements and sighed inwardly. True cultivators who have stepped into the void tribulation are all of steadfast will. A treasure formed by the divine abilities of a grand heavenly venerable is not easily withdrawn from. Fine, since she will not retreat. Let's see whose speed is faster. Wang Lin's eyes revealed determination, and with a flash of his body, he disappeared without a trace. Deep within the Earthfire vein, in the head of the main dragon soul, Wang Lin's primordial true body continuously absorbed and devoured. The roar and struggle of the dragon's soul seemed to have weakened considerably. In the dragon's head, Wang Lin's true body was barely visible, its form consisting only of the sparrow feather hair from its head. Yet now, black streaks had begun to form at the roots of the hair. This blackness seemed to swirl with a dark light, slowly extending. Once fully spread, his primordial true body would completely coalesce. Time passed slowly, and Wang Lin's primordial true body had completely ignored the external dangers. All of his focus was on devouring and absorbing, racing against time. If the young woman arrived before his true body was fully formed, Wang Lin would fail this time, and everything would be in vain. The chance to find such an opportunity again would be extremely difficult. His true body repeatedly appeared before the young woman, blocking her way and using various divine abilities, But after several attempts, she paid no attention, charging full speed toward the depths of the Earthfire vein. Time passed quickly, and several hours later, the young woman was nearing the location. The main dragon soul, where Wang Lin's primordial true body resided, had grown weak to a certain extent. Its roars had diminished, and its body's writhing seemed to have subsided. However, this was just the outward appearance. Within the dragon soul's eyes, a brilliant light suddenly condensed. It raised its head and let out the strongest roar, its body, which had seemed to calm, now shaking once more. With its roar, the vast main dragon soul erupted in fiery light, scattering a raging sea of flames. In an instant, its immense body began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. From its boundless size, it rapidly shrank to 10,000, 1,000, 100, and then 10 zhang. At the cost of compressing its body, the main dragon soul unleashed its most intense resistance. Its body shrank further, down to 10 zhang, 5 zhang, 3 zhang, and then 1 zhang. In this frantic contraction, its will was likewise condensed and compressed, until at 1 zhang, it violently compressed once again, transforming into a fireball the size of a fist. At the moment Wang Lin's true body was forced out during this contraction, the fireball, carrying the final madness of the dragon soul, shot toward the center of Wang Lin's true body's forehead. With a thunderous explosion, the fireball collided with Wang Lin's forehead, merging with it and entering his true body. As the fireball entered Wang Lin's primordial true body, his divine sense immediately rumbled, as if he had become a mortal, struggling on a tiny boat amidst a raging sea. A powerful will descended, attempting to obliterate Wang Lin's divine sense and occupy his primordial true body. This will was none other than that of the Earthfire dragon soul. Having abandoned its own body, it transformed into this fist-sized light ball. In its final madness, it sought to seize Wang Lin's primordial true body, to make it its own will-bearer. This will was incredibly strong, descending upon Wang Lin's divine sense like a massive hand aiming to crush him. Within this will, there was a sense of struggle and resistance, as if a cry of defiance against the heavens was resounding. Through the blur, Wang Lin seemed to see light and feel heat. The fusion of light and heat transformed into the fire of the heavens and earth. The will in this fire burned everything, even itself, with a madness and a sense of rebelliousness, roaring through the world. It sought to burn Wang Lin's divine sense, to turn everything he had into ash. Fire. I, Wang Lin, have realized that the source of fire in me is not from the vermilion bird, but from the heart of the Zhuhua. The Zhuhua flickers in the wind, its flame. The wind howled, attempting to extinguish the Zhuhua. The Zhuhua was fragile, seemingly on the brink of dying, ready to dissipate into a wisp of blue smoke. Yet each time the wind came, the Zhuhua would resist, violently flickering. It refused to die. It refused to transform into blue smoke. The fire origin I, Wang Lin, understood was this very will. It was the will of the Zhuhua. It was the will of my, Wang Lin's, cultivation path. It was also the will of my entire life, struggling against the heavens. My will, do you dare to extinguish it? Can you extinguish it? Wang Lin's primordial origin avatar suddenly opened its eyes, flames surging in its pupils. A roar erupted from its mouth, and the divine sense within its body, under the will of the fire dragon soul, struggled, unyielding, just as unyielding as the Zhuhua. Like a candle, like the Zhuhua,